Move on.
I can't believe nobody has noticed this yet. Maybe they have. They just haven't put all the pieces together yet. But after watching all of these live service games that we've just seen completely just wither and die and millions and billions just completely wasted, I think it's finally over, guys. Seriously. After watching all the game announcements that we had seen over the past couple of months, I realized that they were almost entirely devoid of live service games outside of the notorious few that we see every single year.
That's right.
Call me crazy, but I think that these guys have given up. Not all of it, obviously. I mean, there's still plenty of live service games that are out today that are still doing just fine. They're great live service games that you could be playing. Many of you guys are probably playing right now, and we're going to be talking about some of those to be able to contrast the good with the bad. But the live service, or the version of live service that these guys have been trying to chase over the past 10 years, the idea that every single player is going to be a cash register and these guys are only one battle pass away from printing money, I think that that is dead. It's done. It's gone and buried at this point.
I think the same thing has happened. Like a really good microcosm of this is anime-style character selector gacha games with different characters that do different types of attacks, like fire, ice, elemental attacks. There are right now too many games on the market for that audience, and there's even more of these games coming out. You still have Silver Palace releasing, and you also, you have Azure Premilia releasing as well. Both of these games, I think people like NTE is a good game, but there are so many people that are already invested into Genshin Impact or Wuthering Waves that it's hard for any of these new games to catch on because there's already so much attention for the existing ones. And I think that fundamentally they reached market saturation and people have already made a literal investment, right? They spent $1,000 on their favorite waifu on these games, and now they're not willing to give that up. I think that's what's happened. Summoner's Wars is the original gacha. I don't give a fuck about that piece of shit. Fuck that game. The game sucks. You play Wuthering Waves. That's the only good one.
And it's their fault.
Shut the fuck up.
They're the ones that did this. We don't have anything to do with it outside of just not playing those games in this case. But these guys had a good thing, but they just couldn't get enough. No, instead, they had to strangle that golden goose for everything it was worth. Just give me another $1. They just had to continue to extend the track on the treadmill to ask for more time and more money and then flood this market with just so many games. But I think the real damage came from something that nobody was even aware of. These guys got exactly what they wanted. While they definitely, without a doubt, exhausted quite a lot of us, myself included, they trained people to be insatiable, to make it where no amount of content would ever satisfy them. And by doing that, they essentially put the developers on
This is the way WoW is. It's like, oh, I played the game, I'm out of content. I played the patch for 12 hours for 2 months, and there's nothing left for me to do. Dead game, anyone?
A treadmill. And now this entire industry is getting skinny.
Go do something else.
We have seen a massive resurgence and focus into single-player games with stuff like Crimson Desert, Resident Evil 9, Pragmata. Hell, even Rockstar is out here having the confidence to invest over $1 billion into what is still at its core a single-player game with Grand Theft Auto 6. So imagine my surprise when I hop online and I find out that after going 1-12 with live service games, having the most high-profile live service failure in history and shutting down Destiny 2, PlayStation has somehow confirmed that they plan to revitalize the market with more live service games because they believe that they are...
Guys, okay, all right, so I know the last 12 have failed, but let me tell you something about number 13 here, all right? This is going to totally change it.
...are the future. And I thought that my first reaction would be, how have you not learned your lesson yet? But honestly, it just felt tone deaf because we just don't really hear that much about live service anymore. Not like we used to. It's kind of just become an afterthought, which got me thinking.
I think the live service, the massive, just rush for live service was also because of COVID. I think COVID being this big thing where now, oh my God, everybody's inside. That's when live service really popped off because you had a much larger activatable market. Now I think that the market's much more stabilized and you don't have that happening anymore.
Live service is in a really weird place right now. Yeah. Nearly every single live service game that comes to market either dies immediately or gets filtered down to a modest audience. Entrenched live service games that we once thought were invincible are now starting to lose their players. Some games have remained unchanged, and then somehow at the exact same time, we have Destiny 2 that just fell out of active development, but it's also reaching the healthiest place that it's been in for almost 2 years. And that brought me to a realization. The version of live service, the version of a successful live service game that we want is still very much alive. The version the industry wants.
You want to know what the real live service game is? The true live service game? Path of Exile 2. That's live service done right. That's my game.
It's effectively dead. Now, I don't want to say that live service is flat out dead because that really wouldn't be accurate to say. Plenty of these games are still doing fine. Grand Theft Auto Online still dominates. Counter-Strike 2 and Dota 2 are still massive. Fortnite is not going anywhere anytime soon. And we're also seeing games like Path of Exile 2, Dead by Daylight, and Warframe grow, break records, or just keep raising their floor year after year. The most successful live service games that we're seeing right now are either maintaining, slightly declining, or growing slowly over time. Not explosively, methodically, incrementally, brick by brick.
That's kind of impressive. He's got a headhunter? Wow. He's been playing a lot. His build still sucks, too. Wow, it's crazy.
In most cases. But the one thing that almost all these games also have in common is time. If you guys actually go down the list of the biggest live service games that are out right now, nearly every single one of them came out between 2012 and 2017, with only really a few outliers. Path of Exile 2 being one of them, but that's really just an extension of their previous game, which is still killing it even today. The ones that came out after that, for the most part, man, it is a graveyard. I took the time to really look into this, and honestly, man, I think the numbers would shock a lot of people. The estimate is not going to be completely bulletproof because I'm also going to be counting in games that are considered anything live service, so whether that's a gacha game or a first-person shooter, but I found that roughly 160 live service games are either on live support, actively failing, canceled, or completely dead just from the past 5 years. And
all of your waifus into the void.
Most of them are dead.
It's too bad.
We're talking about billions of dollars being lit on fire, and most of these games weren't even high-profile failures. Hell, most of you guys wouldn't even know what half of these games even were. Spellcaster Chronicles from Quantic Dream, Last Flag from the band Imagine Dragons for whatever reason. Wildgate got shut down the other day, and I had never even heard of it. And yeah, it's going to be easy to point out some of the individual problems with each one of these games. Bad marketing, bad concept, terrible character design, whatever it might be. And some of that stuff is true and well worth calling out when it is, but part of this is honestly just saturation. Over 19,000 games released on Steam alone in 2025. It's not exactly surprising that some of these games just flat out disappear. A 2025...
Here's another big component. I'm sorry I'm pausing so much. I just have a lot of opinions on this. Is that I have a really hard time keeping up with live service games because whenever I'm playing one and I come back, like, for example, with Where Winds Meet, like, I was playing that game until 4 a.m. last night, and I'm still not capped out and ready to do all the bosses yet. I've been playing it like crazy, and I still haven't finished it. So what happens is that, like, you know, in Apex, let's say, or Fortnite, or, you know, Marvel Rivals, you get pretty good at the game, right? You get Plat or Diamond or something, right? And you're doing pretty well. You're confident in the game. And then you take a break for 6 months, and you come back, and now your skill level is at bronze and silver again. So you're always, like, basically retreading the same ground over and over and over. And you're in, like, this constant basically feedback loop or conveyor belt of content that you just engage in for as however long that you want, and then you eventually finish it, and then you go back to doing what you're doing instead. Whereas, and I think that, like, a single player game, like, I'm almost done with the Adventures of Elliot. Like, this is like, I'm at there's like the last super boss, and then there's like a boss rush thing of like 12 bosses you have to fight in a row. I'm going to beat that, but I haven't beaten it yet because it's really hard. And so I've done all of that, and, like, there's a finality of that. When I beat a video game, when I beat Crimson Desert, when I beat, for example, I don't know, like, I'm playing through Death Stranding as well. when I beat, Jesus, I can't think of any other game that I've played recently. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here. But when I complete these games, I feel good about myself, right? I beat Star Fox. Yeah, I beat Star Fox. It's over. The game's over. Resident Evil. Yeah, I beat Resident Evil 4. The game's over. I could go back and do the DLC or something, but like overall, I beat the game. And that is a fulfilling feeling. And I think that older people, and by older, I mean people that are like in their 30s and over, there are a lot of these online like competitive games that I think that we used to all play whenever we were like younger guys or teenagers that now I think have been fundamentally changed by influencer culture, because influencer culture has created the sweat level that you would have in like Halo 2 or Halo 3, and it's dialed it up to like, 10 times as much as it was. So everybody is playing these video games like their lives depend on it, because they do. These are people with no other skills. They have nothing else going in their life, and they have TTV in their name, and they want to stream snipe Shroud so everybody can see that they're actually really good at video games and they can get discovered. And everybody is playing their little fucking heart out, building Taj Mahals, Eiffel Towers, and fucking Empire State Buildings in Fortnite, hoping that they can become the next big popular person. That's it, the next ninja. And so video games and competitive games now have, I think, just fundamentally changed.
Survey showed that 60% of players only buy 1 or 2 games a year, and only 14% actually buy once a month. That's 12 out of 19,000 games for the people that are buying the most games. That is like a 0.06% odds. You have better odds pulling a 5-star in a gacha game than you do getting somebody to play yours. And live service only makes that problem even worse, because these games aren't just fighting for a single sale. They're fighting for a routine, time, attention, habit. There's only so much of that to be able to go around, and every single new live service game that enters into the market is just lowering that ceiling for everybody else. This has always been my biggest criticism against PlayStation wanting to release 12 live service games in just 3 years, because even if those games were good, they would just end up cannibalizing all the other games that they release. So yes, saturation is definitely going to be part of it. There are just too many games, too many live service games, too many demands for people's time, and just not enough players and time to be able to go around to give everything a chance. But I don't think that's the whole story. There is something else driving this, and I just don't think that people have realized it yet. I mean, look at the 4 most popular live service games that have been released in the past couple of years. You got Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, Battlefield 6, and Arc Raiders. All of them found incredible success early on, and all of them lost 85% or more of their peak within 4 to 6 months. Now, I'm not saying that these games are bad or down and out.
By the way, I hear this, and I'm thinking to myself, these games are massively successful. They did incredibly well. These video games are not going to be popular forever. Like, even an amazing game like PoE 2 is going to have lulls, right? It's going to have ups and downs. Like, that's the way it is. Like, you release a video game like this, it's popular for a while, and then people move on. Because Arc Raiders is the same gameplay loop over and over and over. It's dynamic, fun, and interesting, but fundamentally, if you do it for 500 hours, you're going to run out of things to do. And you've already seen that before. So that's the reason why people move past these games.
Hell, I'm not even saying that their current numbers are necessarily bad, save for Battlefield 6 in this case. Those guys definitely need to pick that up. But it's really hard to ignore a drop-off this massive, especially when these games are supposed to be forever games and they're being made to be temporary almost immediately. I think what's happening is the player bases are lapping these developers. Demand is now outstripping supply, at least contextually, which kind of sounds absurd to say out loud because there's just tons of games to play. There's hundreds, if not thousands of hours of content. And I'll admit to you that I've been brushing it off every single time I hear anybody complain about how these games just simply do not have enough to do. But when you zoom out, these games are getting absolutely devoured. They hit the market, dominate conversation for a few months, fall out of popularity, and then struggle to ever reclaim that first wave of attention.
Great. Everybody says this is like some kind of like a bad thing. I think that's great. Like, the game was really popular for a long time and people enjoyed it. You know, they played it for a few months. Everybody was having fun. They went through all of the content and that was it. So you can still, like, you know what else was like that, by the way? Crimson Desert was like that. Everybody was posting every single day, oh my God, if you stand on this thing and you hit this box and then you go inside of here, there's a secret dungeon and there's a sword that actually is the same sword as every other sword. But like you can go and get it right now. Like that was going on for months with Crimson Desert. So really, I think that you don't need to make a game live service in order for a game to be really exciting and fun. And that was true with Elden Ring also.
And there's a lot of causes here. Part of it is severe mismanagement. Arc Raiders not handling cheaters, Battlefield giving way too much attention to a battle royale, Marvel Rivals having algorithmic matchmaking issues, Helldivers 2 running into mismatched audience expectations and technical problems.
Helldivers 2 killed its audience with the PlayStation Network thing. I mean, I think that they never really recovered from that. And like it kind of just poisoned the well to where like even now, whenever they did a few really cool things, I don't think people are really that excited to go back to the game.
Part of this is also just social media, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, whatever else. Content creators have the time and, more importantly, have made an entire career out of chewing through these games at an absurd rate. So all the content that you see makes it feel like the game doesn't have enough, and then those creators move on to the next thing, and suddenly the game feels old before most normal players are even done with it. But
I think he brings up a really good point here, and I never really thought about this, is it's kind of like a vicious cycle of like radicalization or like extremism. And I don't mean like in a political sense. I mean in like content creators play games and they get tired of them and then they move past them, which I think makes players more tired of them and moving past them as well. And so it accelerates the process of new games because content creators are playing them so often.
I think the real issue is that these studios simply just cannot keep up with the appetite anymore. Most of the people that are playing these games are coming from already established live service games with years of content, years of habits, and years of chasing a carrot on a stick. Publishers have spent years extending that track more and more aggressively year over year, not only just to keep those players locked in, but also to drain their wallets as much as they could. And it's created this inverse effect. The games have lost their quality because the pace quickened, the monetization became too much to bear, and then players got exhausted and started leaving. But the audience that stayed had its appetite adjusted. Even some of the players that had left, just the same. This is not some random change in player behavior. This is what the industry spent 10 years trying to train people to do. So now a lot of these new live service games are waking up to basically the worst audience possible. Hell, every single live service game is. All these audiences are trained to expect endless content, endless rewards, endless updates, and endless...
I think that they deserve endless content, endless rewards, and endless updates. And you know why? It's because they keep having endless fucking store items. You keep asking people to buy endless battle passes, and yeah, people want endless shit to have to use with the battle pass. Duh. Obviously. What the fuck else are you supposed to do?
Reasons to keep logging in, while also still being eyed by the most cynical audiences that have been pushed out of live service games. You have one dejected audience, and you have an audience that's just way too hungry for you to be able to keep up with. I think that Arc Raiders is probably the game that I noticed this happen the most with. I absolutely love that game. I thought it was incredible. I had so much fun playing it with my friends, but I'm also in the camp of players that gets exhausted by live service games.
Here's another thing. Is I bet the people that play Arc Raiders right now and they're still playing it nonstop all day, every day, are probably really, really good at the game. So the same way that a new player could come into Arc Raiders on the first month of its release and still kind of have a bit of a fighting chance and kind of understand what's going on, now they're probably just getting completely annihilated by people that have way more time on the game. And so the Omega Sweats, exactly. So you create an environment where now new players don't really have the ability to come into the game unless they're hyper dedicated or they're already skilled from similar games to be able to intake new players quickly. That's why the best time of any MMO or any video game really in general is the first month or couple of weeks of its release, because that's when not everybody knows about all of the secrets, all of the tricks, all of the tech, and everybody is just kind of playing the video game to simply play the video game. Like, I remember the first month of Lost Ark was absolute fucking euphoria. Like, I was thinking about that game constantly. We were streaming it every single day. Oh my God, it was amazing. Same as Elden Ring.
Relatively quickly, and I hit a point where I felt like I had done enough, and I simply had just walked away. But as I had walked away, I was still watching people play it, and I started to realize that while Arc Raiders had its issues, its biggest problem was that they just weren't prepared for the kind of popularity that they received, and they just didn't have enough content to be able to sate the audience that was playing their game, because they were playing it every single day, all the time, every single chance they could get. They didn't have the...
You can't make somebody like that happy. You're not going to make, like, I mean, dude, that's impossible. It's impossible to do that.
Plans or the infrastructure to be able to capitalize on it. And I'm not even sure that they should even try to do that, because at a certain point, chasing that kind of audience would almost certainly come at the cost of the updates themselves, because you're trying to push them out faster, which means they're going to be at a lower quality. Looking at their initial roadmap, a new map and an expedition to sink resources into, a couple new enemies, and some weather conditions every couple of months or so is not going to be enough to bring people back, or even to keep them playing for very long. Not with the kind of audience that they suddenly had. To be able to keep that initial flame alive, every update would have had to have been more drastic than the last. Effectively a new game every single time they updated the game. Bigger changes to the map, bigger changes to their objectives, crafting, engagements, progression, everything. At that point, you're not supporting the game anymore. You're just feeding a machine. This is completely the fault of the industry. These games are being devoured at a record pace. Now, I know this is going to resonate with a lot of you guys, but rewind the clock back a few years, and whether it was fighting games, first-person shooters, hell, even MMOs, even the most successful MMOs that we see today are still basically the same. There's a little bit more pace to their updates, but still, we used to be able to have these games as daily drivers, and we would be completely fine without seeing any content added to these games. Obviously, map packs and expansions would later extend the life of those games, but after that...
I felt that way about WoW, because I was fucking, like, I wanted to do everything in WoW. Like, it was like... And there's another component to this, that, like, being good at video games used to matter. Like, having, like, a really high item level in WoW. Like, I used to finish, like, you ever spend all day playing a video game and you go to bed and you think to yourself, like, God damn, I just did it. You have, like, you're satisfied. You feel like a fucking champion. You're like, yes, bro. Like, that was awesome. And, like, nowadays, like, I just don't get that feeling anymore. I don't get that feeling out of really hardly any game. And I'm sure I've had days like that, you know, recently, but it's few and far between. And I think that, you know, there's a combination of, you know, market saturation, age, maturity, time, and then also, like, it's a paradigm shift. Like, and I think culturally, nobody cares about being really, really good at video games in the same way that they used to. Like, back in the day, and, like, not even back in the day, but, like, there was a window inside of, like, 2008 to, like, 2020 where being really good at a video game was actually pretty cool. And online, at least, right? Not with girls, obviously, but online, it was really cool. And so, like, if you were a gladiator in WoW, that was badass. If you were a, you know, challenger in League, that was super cool. But now I feel like nobody gives a shit about being good at games anymore. And am I crazy for saying that? Cheaters ruined it. I mean, we had cheaters in Halo 2. I mean, standby. Why is there a rocket? I thought there's no rocket launcher in this. Why did this get blown up? Wait, I lost the match. Fuck. No, it was never cool. No, I think that there was a culture that respected and created an ecosystem where people felt like they were spending their time, you know, perfecting skills in a video game that was... It was appreciated. It's just not appreciated anymore. Nobody gives a shit. That's the way it is. Nobody cares.
Over time, it just became faster and faster. More money, more content. More money, more content. And
nobody wants
you're going to end up losing some players
anymore.
Along the way. Guys like me that just get exhausted by it. Eventually, that audience is going to start to adapt to those games and the size of those games. And once they do, well... Now it's a problem for the industry itself. It's the problem you created for your own games in a lot of cases. What's happening here is that these games simply just don't have enough content anymore to actually be able to sate anybody. And none of that content is good when they do, or when they are able to fill that need, because they're putting it out so fast that, well, it's not really worth much of anything. And when these games come in and they just flood the market with even more of these games.
That's why I stopped playing WoW. Is like every patch of WoW is just replaying the first patch of Legion. Like, with a few extra little bells and whistles. It's all the same.
Well, now the players are in a position where they can go and play one of those new games.
Yeah.
They can go fill that need somewhere else, and then they might maybe circle back to yours. In most cases, they never do. And the only way that you're going to bring those players back is by raising the bar to an impossible level, and at that point, it's already over.
You're cooked.
You know, I think back to the days of like World of Warcraft and stuff like that, and this is usually, or not usually, this is actually still today how a lot of these games run. Even Final Fantasy is the same way. Look at how long those games have been going. Their expansions are basically what, every 2 years or something like that. Well, they do have some updates in between there. It's usually staggered out quite a lot. Those games, there's already a lot to do to begin with, but still at the same time, there's something about that slower pace that kept those games alive for as long as they've been alive. And while they've definitely lost
Here's another reason why Classic WoW was so successful. If you quit Classic WoW and you were level 37, you came back to Classic WoW and you were level 37. You picked up exactly where you left off. You didn't get power crept. It's not like you have people in Deadmine's gear that are now doing more damage than you. Fundamentally, you stopped exactly where you left off. Even in BWL, if you quit in BWL and you come back, maybe now AQ40 is out. Maybe now Nax is out. But now you have this extra content to do that did not replace or get rid of your content. You needed to do your content in order to do the next content. So good live service games. And the problem with this is that, like, Lost Ark kind of did this too much. But the best thing about Classic WoW is that there are steps, right? And so, like, you have your leveling, and this is Molten Core, and this is BWL. This is AQ40, right? Or AQ40. And then there's Nax, right? So this is the way that a good game used to be. Now, this is the way it is. And then you go from here down to here. And so this is the seasonal patch model where you take the same 2 steps over and over and over. It used to be a staircase. Now it's a treadmill. You never actually move forward. You just tread water. And that's the reason why Classic WoW was so good. That's the reason why OSRS was so good and is so good. It's because if you stopped and you only had this much progression, you can come back 3 years later and you can continue moving forward. You see what I'm saying? That's the reason why I think a lot of these other games fail too. It's because it has engineered people into a mindset of learned helplessness, where it's like, I know it doesn't matter how hard I work. I'm never going to get far enough ahead to where the next patch won't just invalidate my efforts now. There's no reason to perfect my gear now because they're just going to release something that's going to just be better anyway. It doesn't even matter. That's what it is.
Over the years, they're still a hell of a lot more healthier than a lot of the games that are already dead and buried at this point.
Yeah.
So, honestly, live service gold rush was the right terminology the entire time. These guys came in, they dug everything out, they hollowed out the ground, and they have nothing left to fill it with. It was always destined for failure. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy of greed in
FOMO's
this case.
Ruining games.
It was always going to collapse in on itself. But that doesn't necessarily mean that success doesn't exist in live service. It very much does.
Absolutely,
and I think that the games that are going to find the most success, and the games that are finding the most success, aren't the games that are exploding immediately to these massive player numbers and trying to hold on to them. No.
It's like Warframe?
It's the ones that start off small and then build themselves out.
That's why I can use Warframe as an example, right?
When I look at all the live service games that are still around and a lot of the ones that have come and gone, I think the most successful version of live service isn't the game that explodes to hundreds of thousands of players or even millions of players and then tries to flood them with as much content as possible. It's the games that never aim to be big, start small, build slowly, and then set the right appetite from the beginning. And the best, and honestly, probably the most fascinating example of all of this is actually Warframe. Now, Warframe is not the most popular game. It has had its moments of wild popularity, but its life is basically the inverse of nearly every live service game in all of existence. Most of these games explode, plateau, and then decline. Warframe started out modestly,
I've
and
seen
then
them
for now
graphs.
over a decade, the game has just continued to raise its floor year over year. And it did that by effectively doing the exact opposite of everybody else in the industry. Warframe has updates and expansions, but all that content is completely free. It doesn't expire, and more importantly, it all remains relevant. It has a battle pass, but the battle pass is completely free. It has microtransactions for cosmetics, materials, weapons, hell, even the Warframes themselves. You can buy anything you wanted in the game, but all of it, if not most of it, is completely earnable in the game just by playing it, or if you want to, you can get it through their player-driven economy, which you also get through just by playing the game. The point is that Warframe is almost entirely stripped of FOMO. The carrot isn't on a stick. It's handed to you, and then you choose when you want to eat it or when you want another one. I cannot tell you guys how inviting and comfortable of a feeling that is. It's almost familiar in a way. Like,
I think people are tired of FOMO shit. They're tired of FOMO shit. They just get exhausted by there being another new battle pass that they didn't take advantage of, and now I don't have this thing. And also, another reason is that FOMO was okay whenever there was only one game on your radar. But whenever you're managing 5 different games of whack-a-mole at the same time, and then you have to make sure that you never miss a special mole, well, then you're just going to be losing your fucking mind. I'm so tired of FOMO. It's so annoying. It is. It's just too many games, too many engagement mechanisms, too many player retention mechanisms. It's exhausting.
Single or multiplayer games from like a decade ago where you still get to share the experience with everybody else, but you get to take it at your own pace. And more importantly, in this case, well, the developers get to take it at their own pace too. Digital Extremes is a very strict whenever it's ready approach to their updates. There's no hard roadmaps, no hard dates that they set. It's just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. They usually have an idea of when they want to get something out, but they don't rush themselves to hit a specific deadline because they recognize that that's unfair to both themselves and the players. And while
this is something I'm worried about with PoE 2, I don't think they're going to have everything ready for PoE 2 release. And I think that I think that you're going to see a video at some point of Jonathan coming out and saying, guys, it's not all going to be there. And you know what I'm going to say? Understandable. Have a nice day. I'll see you on the release. Okay, it's a big game. Because if you take care of your players and you make good games, the players will understand that and they will be there when you're ready. That's it.
Warframe has had plenty of issues with updates in the past, and not every single update's going to be a hit. Their consistency with aiming for quality over speed and quantity has conditioned their audience to be more patient, more casual, and more excited when new content finally does drop, giving these guys something to actually look forward to. I've been playing a lot of Destiny recently after its final update, and now that there isn't a clear future for the game, or even if the future is that it's actually just over, it has honestly been the most fun that I've had with Destiny in a long time. There is so much content to play, and I'm in no rush to complete it. I'm not holding my friends back by not being able to be online every single day, and we're just kind of just having fun with it. And I think a lot of people feel the exact same way. It's why the game, without any new content being added, is averaging the highest player numbers it's seen in almost 2 years.
What are y'all thinking this week?
It makes me think that Destiny should have been a lot more like Warframe, not in a literal sense, but in a sense that the objective should have never been speed, profit, and a strict schedule. It should have been quality, efficiency, and just trying to do something cool. I had a talk with Asdacross, one of the biggest content creators for Destiny, and he was talking about how there were all these things that players had asked for, and how Monument of Triumph showed that the company was listening to them, and how hard it was to get certain things greenlit. He was talking about some horror stories from some of the developers, and I came to this realization in that discussion that these teams that are built to optimize for speed and monetization cannot fix the things that players actually need fixed, and they can't add the things that players actually want. Not because the developers don't care, but because the business itself is just not built for it anymore.
That's another really big problem, is that this is the reason why you see a lot of these AAA games failing. It's because they're too large and there's too many levels of red tape and bureaucracy in order for them to make dynamic, good decisions quickly in real time. So, it's harder to adapt to the market whenever there's 17 different focus groups that you have to go through in order to make a decision to change the game. That's a huge problem. And you see also, video games that have a Like basically one figurehead, one guy calling the shots that's making decisions. And I know that's never actually really the case with most games, but like at least that project that are usually better games because there is an ideology that is singularly driving it, and it can be changed, it can move, it can adapt more quickly. And I think being able to adapt to market pressure is something that these companies really aren't able to do. And nowadays it's so much more important.
I mean, something as simple as setting up a test dummy still takes developers, designers, artists, engineers, and sound designers, and also, more importantly, time. And that's all going to cost these guys money. So management is going to ask these guys, well, what kind of return are we going to get on this when we should have these people working on monetizable content instead?
Exactly.
And while these companies do understand that goodwill has value, they can't put that on a spreadsheet. So oftentimes they just throw it on the back burner or they just forget about it entirely. And
nobody cares. This is a big problem. Nobody cares about doing the right thing. Nobody cares. No, it's like, it's so sad, right? Because like, I mean, what are video games fundamentally? They're art, right? Video games are artistic endeavors. And we've entered into a world now where video games are treated like basically just like money machines. And there's never and this is with all businesses now. Nobody ever thinks about like, well, what am I really doing for the people that are consuming my content? Like, how am I improving their lives and making things better for them? And nobody ever asks this question anymore. Like, it's just about how much money can we make? How much does something cost, etc. And there's never the conversation and never the consideration about, like, what am I giving to my community? What am I projecting forward? Is this the person that I want to be? Is this what I want to deliver? Is this meeting my expectations? And it's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares anymore. And it doesn't matter whether it's inside of, you know, like making pieces of wood, whether it's selling, knickknacks, whether it's making computers, whether it's video games. It's like nobody cares about anything anymore. They just, shareholders choose to, it's just about maximizing money, and it's happening everywhere. And I think that, like, there's so many reasons for it. Like, oh my God, I can't even get into it. But yes.
The faster and more aggressive that these games get, well, the faster they fall apart because they no longer have the time to be able to support them properly, maintain their balance, and build things that people actually want to be able to make those players stay, which kind of brings us up to another issue. One of the reasons why these live service games won't slow down even though they need to is because, well, slowing down is antithetical to their own goals. They want player numbers to be as high and as static as possible. So they want to reach every single player they possibly can while also keeping them on that track forever. And they try to accomplish this. They try to accomplish both. And because they do that, well, it will never work. One of the biggest strengths of games like Warframe or Path of Exile is that they obviously want their games to be popular and they want to make revenue. They need revenue.
They embrace the ebb and flow.
Revenue, but they're comfortable with just focusing on the audience that they already have.
Yes.
They don't overextend. And more importantly, well, they are okay with their players leaving and taking a break. Warframe bucks nearly every.
It's also like, I mean, even PoE, I think Settlers of Calgar is a great example where Settlers of Calgar, they definitely tried and implemented some features into that had modern gaming functionalities, things like, you know, cyclical reward systems, like, for example, sending people out on those boats to do things. Like that was a feature that they added in as a limited feature to see how players would react to it. And, you know, some of that got added in, some of it didn't. PoW World as well. Yeah, PoW, I can't wait for that game to come out.
Modern trend out there. It is such a weird game, but they just fixate on their core audience and what their core audience wants. And while that naturally separates them from wider audiences, the people that do like the game absolutely love it. And that's where a lot of these recent live service games have been going.
This is where Warcraft failed, is that in Burning Crusade, like they were still making the game for people that liked World of Warcraft. In Wrath of the Lich King, they hit market saturation for people that wanted to play World of Warcraft. And so then they started making World of Warcraft into the game that other people wanted to play. And then after enough years of doing that, the original people that wanted to play World of Warcraft said, well, this game isn't for me anymore because you made it for people that don't want to play World of Warcraft. That's exactly what happened.
Wrong. The same problem that we've talked about with single player games as well is that a lot of these guys go an ocean wide and an inch deep. They're afraid to just fully lean into one audience because, well, they don't want to lose another audience that they could have had. and maybe they want to get that audience later. Arc Raiders, I think, is probably like the best example of this. They ended up trapped between two audiences. On one side, they had the PvE crowd that honestly just wanted to cooperatively play with other players and be nice with everybody. And on the other hand, they had a hardcore PvP audience that just wanted to shoot on sight. And while they made matchmaking changes to try to appease both sides, ultimately, the game itself could never actually support both of those people or both of those kind of players long term because
he's right. I mean, you can't have an environment where both of those groups of players are playing together. This is the reason why every PvP MMO dies. Like, or it at least enters like a slow term entropy, right? It's because MMOs, like people that play MMOs for PvP are generally people that are looking for unfair fights so they can kill noobs. So most people don't want to have that happen. So you have a regressive amount of players until the game dies.
At a certain point, you kind of have to decide what this game is. When you build an update around trying to hold on to everyone and reach every single audience you possibly can, instead of just leaning into the people who actually love what you made, you end up giving your game an identity crisis. And honestly, you make it impossible to support. I think Path of Exile probably has the best approach here. When I interviewed Jonathan Rogers, the head of Grinding Gear Games, he had said that every single time they do an update, it nearly gives the guy a heart attack. But he recognizes, and the whole team recognizes, that players need to take a break. These guys are completely fine with their game tanking for a couple of months. They're not scrambling to keep every single person in the game forever. They have a schedule. They're trying to push their updates when they can, but they're not going to lose their minds over every player who leaves for a few months. And because of that, they just focus on making better updates instead of faster ones. They're aiming not to keep every single player, but instead to aim to make an update that brings more people back to the game every single time. Right. And I think that's the right way to do things. This entire version of live service at the industry.
And also, like, I even planned to skip leagues. Like, this league, I played a lot, and I'm, like, level 96. I have, like, pretty much, like, I don't have perfect gear or anything like that, but I have very good gear. I'm happy with my character, and I've accomplished almost everything that I wanted to accomplish in the game. So I completed all the challenges in the game, and I did all of that. And so I plan on, sometimes I just skip this league. I tell myself, this is the last big league I'm going to play on PoE 2 until the big release of the game. And that was my plan going into it. And that's normal. That's fine. That's healthy.
Built around all these massive games that were holding on to these massive player counts forever just isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable for the players, and it's definitely not sustainable for the developers. And the wider the audience they try to reach, the more players they try to hold on to, the less these games actually end up being made for the people that are actually playing them, because, well, you just can't keep that many people forever without eventually breaking the game. So I don't think that live service is completely dead. I just think the version of live service that this industry has been chasing is actually dead. Because, well, the successful live service is still very much alive. We can see it here today. We can see it out in a ton of different games. The problem is that
I think OSRS and Classic WoW are great examples of live service games that are extremely successful. It's like having a game that's live service doesn't mean that you have to infinitely create content. If you have a content treadmill that's long enough, people will want to continue playing it because they find it to be fun and engaging.
That kind of live service takes a lot more effort, a lot more time, and a lot more care than a lot of these companies wanted to give.
It's doing really well.
You know, to be honest, I didn't actually take any notice of this until more recently, when I had seen that, like, live service games, or more importantly, like first-person shooters, have just completely fallen out of, like, YouTube algorithms and, like, Twitch and stuff like that. Well,
because they're dominated by sweats, and anybody that tries to play one of these games that isn't like an expert that's put like 10,000 hours into the game and does aim trainers, they're going to get beat by people that are, and they're going to get relegated to low ranks and not going to get any satisfaction out of playing the game. And also, most of these games get completely infested with cheaters as well. So you put all of these things together, and you're just not having a good time. Like, it's so hard to go back, and like I cannot explain the absolute fucking euphoria of playing PUBG in 2017 and watching Shroud on the second monitor. Oh my god. That was it. Take me back. It was so good. And nowadays you just don't have that anymore. You don't.
I still have like a few people that are still watching them, and I think there's still some guys that are like, you know, Summit and Shroud and Peanut and a few other people that are still getting, you know, big numbers and stuff like that and doing really well.
Yeah, they're doing
largely
well,
that space is kind of just dissipated over the years, and it's just not as attractive as it used to be. And I kind of got thinking about it as like, man, like, is live service just completely falling off at this point? You know, I think what all this means is that these developers just need to surrender to the idea that you're just not going to hold on to all these players forever. They're just way too many games, man. Way too many games. There's so much for us to be able to do that eventually your player counts are going to fall. And when you struggle and you flail to try to hold on to everybody, the only thing you're going to do is hurt your game. That's all that's going to happen, because the content itself is just going to end up lacking quality and a legit direction to go in. I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of these games, a lack of identity in a lot of cases. And the other thing is, and this is probably the biggest one to be honest with you, stop aiming for the masses. Stop aiming for these massive audiences. Find a niche and then just solo into it as hard as you possibly can. Look at games like Counter-Strike or Warframe or Path of Exile. These games...
Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter definitely is a niche game. And I think that in Wilds, definitely some of their reactive gameplay that they added in, things like offsetting, perfect blocking, clashes, etc., it definitely made the game more translatable to a Souls-like experience. But if you make a game for a niche, you will still hit a wide audience whenever that niche hits its magnum opus, like Elden Ring. You will still have it happen.
Didn't get huge or didn't get bigger by widening themselves and chasing every single trend under the sun. They're not using extraction shooters. They're not using any of that kind of stuff. They just got better at beating themselves. And because of that, well, the audiences that they already had loved the game and just rave about the game, and eventually they start attracting other people in. That's what happened with me in Path of Exile. I just could not stop hearing about people telling me how much better it was than Diablo, and eventually I gave the game a shot, and sure enough, it's a lot better than Diablo.
I still want to promise that for the release of PoE 2 1.0, I will release my original review for the Path of Exile 1 closed beta in 2012. I'm still planning on doing it.
But I'd actually go to say that I think that the wild successes that we've seen with some of these live service games specifically over the past couple of years might actually be to their detriment. It actually might be the worst thing that happens to these guys, because if you start out small and build slow, continuing to build an audience update after update, well, like you actually have room to grow in that case, right? That's what you've seen with some of these games. I think even like No Man's Sky is a really good example of that. Well,
No Man's Sky is a great example, and so is Cyberpunk, where Cyberpunk did something, CD Projekt Red did something that with a lot of games I think people have a really negative sentiment for, where like they're changing the main character in Witcher from like Geralt to Ciri. And, it's like, oh, well, it's another girl replacing a male character. It's annoying. And there's people mad about it. But fundamentally, I think because they did such a great job respecting the player and fixing Cyberpunk and making such a good expansion to Cyberpunk, that people are willing to give CD Projekt Red the benefit of the doubt and be like, you know what? You've done us right before. We're ready to give you a chance again. And I think that No Man's Sky is another great example of that. I think you're going to see Light No Fire, which is their next game, that's going to be very successful, and people are going to be extremely open to playing it again, even though No Man's Sky was such a colossal failure on release. And the reason why is because they built up that consumer trust. They built up that, okay, you know what? We did it wrong, but we're going to dedicate years to fixing it, and now we're going to make something new. And you can guarantee now that these people are going to care about that too. Same as Crimson Desert. That's a great example. Like Pearl Abyss definitely earned my respect by the amount of different ways that they fixed. Like, think about it. Dude, people are complaining about storage. They just added storage in like 3 days. They said, oh, we don't have enough storage. They gave you more storage. They said, oh, well, this is a problem doing this. Okay, well, we're just going to change it. It was instantaneous. It was crazy.
Has like a big comeback story at the exact same time.
It took them longer, but
they started off small, had a really dedicated core community, and then the game just continued to get bigger and bigger with each update, and how happy the fan base was, and et cetera. It just kind of spread like wildfire in that case. And I think you see that with a lot of these other games. But if you start at the top,
on stream, I did.
Well, what's your next destination? It's definitely not going to be the top. You're going down. And then what ends up happening is you start seeing the dead game paradox kick in, where all of a sudden everybody else just starts leaving because they see other people that are leaving.
Yes, that is the video game entropy. When people, like, I've noticed this a lot. Like I'll read, like I'll watch on Twitch, and I'll see like a video game. Like I looked at, for example, Where Winds Meet. We were playing that yesterday. I'm probably gonna, I'll probably play that again tomorrow after I get all my stuff caught up. But like once people realize that a game isn't like the game anymore, then they just lose interest and nobody wants to play it anymore. And then once people aren't playing it anymore, then more people lose interest. Then whenever more people lose interest, then more people stop playing. And so it's this entropy cycle that it's almost impossible for a video game to get out of.
So they don't want to waste their time. They don't want to invest their time in a game they think is probably going to die. So they just pack up their bags and move on to the next one. I think the picture of what live service or what live service success looks like is completely changed over the years. Or maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's always been the same, but these guys just try to build a completely different one. But this idea that they're going to make this game that's going to like instantly blow up and just churn out millions of dollars every single week, it's just not going to happen anymore. And the version that is successful is slow and steady. I think that's the way to win the race in this case, but that's not what these guys want because it's not nearly as attractive. You're definitely not going to be able to sell it to shareholders. And honestly, it's probably going to scare a lot of these guys off, which it's actually probably for the best.
Yeah, it is for the best because a lot of these companies that have gotten into investing in video games don't actually care about video games. They don't care about making a product. They don't care about people's enjoyment. They don't care about the process of developing something that you're proud of. They care about creating an asset that they can manage and capitalize on. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But fundamentally, whenever you have an asset management company that is working at trying to improve a artistic passion project, you're going to have a huge dissonance problem there. Major problem.
Anyway. Tell me what you guys think. What do you guys think? What state is your favorite live service game in? Is it doing good? Is it doing bad? Are you a part of one of these games that I mentioned today that are slowly but surely on the rise? I'm happy to be a part of many of their communities. I think they're absolutely fantastic. But anyway, thank you guys for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
Family.
Completely agree. Honestly, like I feel like live service is crashing out, and it's because there are too many live service games inside of the ecosystem, and it's like, think about like a prehistoric forest, right? How many brontosauruses can a prehistoric forest support? Only so many. How many gigantic sequoia trees can a prehistoric forest really support? Not that many. So really, you can't have all of these massive, gigantic, huge games when you just don't have that many people that have, an audience for that. They don't really give a shit. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. It's definitely not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I mean, the market is self-correcting. Yeah, well, I think that the market was oversaturated from the beginning, and now it's starting to self-correct. Marvel Rivals is probably carrying the entire franchise. Well, you know for a fact it's not the movies doing it. The term for that is carrying capacity. Well, it's actually market saturation, but I guess maybe in ecology it's carrying capacity. I'm not even really sure. But I think that, just based off of basic language, yeah, I think that we can understand that. How many of these massive video games can an ecosystem like this support? It's the same as like on Twitch. Like there are only a certain amount of people that are using Twitch every single day.